of this generation, is there a better defender than Dwight Howard?
What's this generation?
Since he came in the league, Dwight Howard showed up in 2004. Up until 2025, is there a better defender than Dwight Howard?
No.
I say Rudy
Leonard,
Gobert,
Draymond, Rudy Gobert,
Anthony Davis,
Draymond, Leonard, Anthony Davis.
not.
Is there a better defender than Dwight Howard as a defender? And I'm talking about dominating the game because I saw Draymond dominate the game as a defender.
No.
I've seen Rudy Gobert shut the door on teams as a defender. Yes, I have.
The point I would make about Dwight being the best is, again, we got to think about it in totality. Jameer Nelson, Hedo Turkoglu,
Rashard
Lewis. He had nobody out there but himself. And for them to be, like in regards to defensively, who was a defensive player?
You're talking about on defense.
Mikael
Petras.
Yeah, Petras out there.
Petras, okay.
Courtney Lee.
Rashard Lewis was serviceable. Rashard Lewis wasn't terrible.
That's a Courtney Lee.
Serviceable. Okay. All right.
Yeah, Hedo too.
Hedo was serviceable.
He was serviceable. He was serviceable on defense.
I know you like Hedo, but I mean,
you ruined Chill's point. You ruined Chill's point. If Hedo's serviceable, then it's a wrap. Then all together. Then I mean, because Hedo wasn't no defender.
Well, the reason why he's saying
Wemby. I forgot about Wemby. Wemby.
He's still young.
So that's what I'm saying. Like Wemby, like really,
he could be 14. If I think he's better, I think he's better.
Do you think Wemby today? At the year 2, Mars, you watching Wemby, you think he a better defender than Dwight Howard ever was today?
Maybe.
Based on
his rim protection.
We got to see it for a full season, though, before we just start.
Because him playing 46 games, I just think he might just forget how to protect the rim if he plays enough.
No. That's not what I'm saying. But like, I am starting to. Because I've been compiling a lot of lists lately. Shout out to Gifted. Check that out over there in playback. But players who play like these short amount of times, like 35 games, and then they have a great 35 games, and then now we're just supposed to rank them over. Like I'm starting to see that's a trend, and it's almost being to the player's benefit. Zion is the player we were talking about, by the way, Mark. But like it's to a player's benefit to play like 35 games and you have a really good 30-game stretch, and then we have to act like you're better than these players playing 65, 70 something plus games when they play enough games to have good stretches and bad stretches and have this run and then not do so good the other week. But those little game sample sizes, you gotta do it for a period of time.
Absolutely. What if I'm just better than
better is better,
but still, you have to do it.
Better is better.
Yeah, but there's obviously a line because Wemby's better than Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, obviously.
So, what if I'm just better than you?
I'm more so talking about when you start comparing to other elite players, right?
Yeah,
so what I'm saying is, if Wemby,
Embiid is better than Bam.
You're missing.
Okay,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
He is better than
two elite players.
But and they've been
Bam
around
is
for
not
quite a while, though,
in
Mars.
Wait.
Oh, okay, my fault.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference. Real talk.
Embiid is better than Donovan Mitchell.
They've been around for quite a while, and Embiid didn't just walk into the game.
Embiid been missing games for my whole life.
Yes, he has been, Mars, but you also seen Embiid for a stretch too. You've seen him for a long time.
I've seen Wemby play over 100 games in the NBA.
You didn't see Donovan. You didn't see Joel Embiid in year 2 and go, yo, he better than Donovan Mitchell right then and there. Did you say that?
2018 Embiid.
Okay, Donovan Mitchell just showed up that year. Donovan Mitchell just showed up that year. Donovan Mitchell had just.
But that was also Donovan Mitchell's rookie year.
Yeah, that was his rookie season. Dwight Howard.
He was better than Donovan Mitchell. So.
Okay, so Dwight Howard, who has done this, because to your point about rim protection, he has done this consistently over the course of 5 years, and in terms of being an elite rim protector, he's always been a great rim protector. But there was a 5-year stretch. There was a 5-year stretch where he was in. There was no better rim protector. There was no better paint presence in the game. That includes Tyson Chandler. That includes those other big guys who were running around during that time. That includes those guys. I can say the same thing about Wemby, but in a short period of time. So you being consistent, I can appreciate your logic of the eye test, but to see you do it a little bit more, I can't just come to the park and go, yo, he nicer than him, but then he was only here twice. Can I see you be nicer than him for a little while longer? Can I see that?
You can. I'm not. I also said maybe. I never said Wemby's better than Dwight. I just said maybe. Like I would think about it. I would have the conversation. If the only argument against Wemby is longevity, then I guess that we don't need to have the conversation. I think there's arguments that are away from longevity, like just away from the fact that he's young. But if that's all we're going to boil the conversation down to, that's fine. But I think Kawhi's better than Dwight. I think Rudy's better than Dwight. I think Anthony Davis is better than Dwight. I think Draymond Green's better than Dwight. And if we're going to factor in other guys who are just in the league while Dwight played, then KG and Tim Duncan and Ben Wallace, I also think are better than Dwight. So
Ben Wallace,
I agree with those guys.
It just depends where the barometer is. But Dwight was amazing.
I think
he'd be back ends of my top 10 of this century.
I think we sleep on something with Dwight too, though. Dwight was mobile. Dwight was light, especially for his size and how big he was up top. Like he was light on his feet, moving around. My thing about bigs when they switch, I don't expect you to be able to switch onto a guard and guard him full court or anything. I need you to be able to keep a hand up, move around, make him turn maybe once or twice, 5 seconds. You know what I'm saying? And Dwight was capable of that. Very mobile, agile, side to side, all of that. I think Dwight's perimeter defense and just kind of mid-range and being able to cover up, I think that gets slept on as well. I think Dwight is definitely the best defender today. I'm talking about.
There's a name we forgot. We forgot about KG. Oh, we didn't mention KG.
Oh no, he's not. I don't think he's better than KG. And Mars, like you said, Tim Duncan and Ben Wallace too. No, I don't got Kenyon Martin. No, but I got Tim Duncan, KG, and Ben Wallace. I think I got all three of them.
Ben Wallace could switch out better than Dwight, and he had. Well, again, Detroit had a defensive minded team. So I mean, the blow bys and stuff like that happened much less in Detroit. So and then on top of that, I think Ben Wallace was great on the block. Even being able to guard Shaq at 6'8", 6'9" is unheard of. That's how strong he was. But as far as his ability to really impact the entire paint, I'm talking about from top 15 feet to baseline. I don't know if there's another player who was just able in that era or even now that can just impact the game that way.
Was Dwight a great post defender?
Yes, he was.
So.
He was.
I think so. He was one of the best at the time. I think he was ill-disciplined, but
chill. I don't like to do this chill, but I think if you switch Dwight and Ben, and I know this isn't the best barometer, but if you were to switch them, I do believe Detroit is even better with Dwight, and I think offense, that could be, but if I put definitely the offense. But if you I'm talking about defense though. I just think Dwight is a little better than I got.
Are we saying? Are you guys saying? Because I'm going to make sure that I'm following you. Mars, for example, when you brought up KG, okay, so Howard showed up in 2004, right? Howard showed up in 2004. That was I think the height of KG as a defender at that point. I think that when he got to Boston, he was still awesome as a defender, but I think that we were on the other side of who KG was as a defender at that point. Dwight Howard was coming into his own that next year in 2008. What I don't want to get confused is with the name KG and what Dwight Howard was doing during his time and what KG was doing when he was at his best. And the best version of KG, I'd say between 2000 in terms of a defender, I'd say between 2002 to probably 2000, I'll say 6. I think that's the best version of him. Even 2008 KG, that Boston Celtics team, that was a damn good defensive team.
Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna. That's my point, though. That's what I'm trying to say.
And I think, but what I'm saying is, I think the KG enhanced them defensively. Dwight Howard, on the other hand, when we're talking about that Orlando team, I mean, they were a good defensive team. They were the number 1 team defensively in the league, and that was largely due to Dwight Howard for years, largely due to him. So I'm not saying that Dwight Howard isn't a better. I'm not saying KG isn't a better defender than him all time. I'm just thinking about that stretch. And when you're talking about KG, there was a time when he was on the other side of who he was.
So are you specifically, KG was a 94 starting at 04? And so if we're specifically starting at 04, then I'm going to ask you, how many like stretch of years are you saying? Like a 3 to 5 year stretch, or one particular season?
Well, when Howard came into the game, that was in 04. I think
Mhm.
that we got 2 more years. I think we got 2 more years of peak KG as a
Mhm.
defender. 2 more years of peak KG. He still was in his prime when he got to the Celtics. I'm not going to argue that point. He still was in his prime during that point. But I think the best version of him was just 2 more years after KG.
He got DPOY in 08, right?
Showed up. Yeah, and that was
Yeah.
and I
He
think
got
one of
4
the
years
reasons what and
He got 4 years in a row.
are you talking about Dwight Howard?
No, I'm talking
Dwight
about
won
KG.
three.
You talking about
Dwight won
KG,
3 straight from 09
Yeah.
to 11.
KG
Dwight
got it in LA, right? Am I tripping?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he did.
KG won it in 08. And again, when I win it, that doesn't mean that I'm in my peak. That just means that I'm still awesome. Right? Let's make sure that we clear on that.
I don't think
I don't
KG
think
needs
that-
to be at his peak as a defender to be better than Dwight, though. I think 08 KG is a better defender than Dwight. And I don't think that's peak KG. But I think
And
he's
that
still better.
team-
than
I
Dwight.
don't
that
think that
team
that's
defense
peak,
is
I don't
great.
think that that's peak KG neither. I think the switchability and I think the versatility from KG that year really enhanced him. But when I think about how dominant Dwight Howard was around that rim protection, that rebounding and stopping plays and completely thwarting teams, I'm thinking about how good he was that stretch from like 2000, I'm going to say 08, 09 to probably 13. I think he was better than KG as a defender.
I wouldn't argue too much with you. There's a couple names who I'll listen to anything. So I'm not going to say I wouldn't listen to. But I'm very comfortable in taking Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, and Draymond Green. So,
Very comfortable.
yes, I'm very
yeah.
comfortable. That doesn't
I'm
mean you
comfortable with
guys have
Rudy.
to agree, but
Yeah,
I know
I'm-
I'm comfortable with
asking-
my-
I'm
But how are
following
you?
you.
How are
I'm
you?
comfortable
How
with my choices.
how are you
I'm follow-
deciphering that? Like, how are you deciphering that?
Well, it's different for each player.
Mhm.
Draymond Green, I think, is just one of the highest IQ defenders of all time, let alone this
Mhm.
generation. His ability to diagnose plays and be early on rotations and stop actions before they develop is second to none. I don't think he obviously has the same athleticism and size dimensions as Dwight Howard did, but his ability to just be early was able to stop plays in a way that Dwight Howard didn't. But Dwight Howard had the athletic ability to make up ground and just swat shots into the 19th row. But I don't think, in terms of mentally, I don't think he was as far ahead of the game as Draymond Green was. And I also think his tendency to foul and jump and chase blocks and lead the league in goaltends every year did more damage defensively than I think anything Draymond Green does on defense, besides the antics that have happened in recent years. But I'm not talking about this current Draymond. I'm talking about Draymond from years back, who I think was less
The one that
detrimental
got
in that regard.
suspended in
Um,
16.
Yeah.
Would you
Well, yeah,
say
he did get
KG
always been here.
Would you say
That's-
KG is a mix of Draymond and Dwight?
Yes, that's why I think KG is pretty much the perfect defender. But so that would be my argument for Draymond. Rudy Gobert, I think, is the modern era Dwight Howard defensive. But I just
What did you
think
say it was?
I could get with
That's
that. Yeah, I could definitely.
Just
get
not
with
as athletic and quick.
yeah, he's not as athletic, but he shuts off the paint. And he
for
still
sure.
does that to this day.
I'm really
But,
high on
like
him, for sure.
Rudy Gobert, I think the reason people are low on Rudy Gobert's defense is because of how bad he is offensively. And I'm never going to argue with how bad he is offensively. He's egregious. But defensively, he's one of, if not the best drop coverage big ever. He shuts off the paint for teams completely. Especially when you look at Utah, if we want to talk about Dwight carrying Orlando's defense, what Rudy Gobert was doing in Utah year after year, he was carrying their defense. They fell off a cliff when he wasn't there. They were the best defense in the league by a significant margin when he was there. Even in the playoffs, they were always better with Rudy Gobert on the floor. In 2021, that's one of the best defensive carry jobs I've ever seen. That Utah team that were the number 1 seed in the West, not solely, they were a good offense. But
no, say
defensively-
solely, Moss. Say solely, Moss. 20.
But defensively, it was solely on the back of Rudy Gobert, solely.
When he's off the floor, 27. I think I want to say 26 or 27th in the league when he's off the floor. Something like
He was, and maybe people don't like how it looks. That's cool. But if Rudy Gobert is in drop coverage, your offense is stifled. And drop has been countered by a few teams. But Rudy Gobert was so good at keeping the ball in front and also not letting anyone get behind him that he was able to play drop effectively. And then also, for whatever reason, he's underrated in terms of his ability to guard on the outside in space. Maybe because he looks funky. Maybe because he looks funky when he does it. But
do you remember what the Clippers did to him? You remember?
I remember that Terrence Mann game. I do remember that Terrence Mann game. I watched that game 4 times actually.
It's tough though, because
I will say every time I watch it, it's not Rudy Gobert's fault.
It's not. It isn't. No,
Well, I
and
mean,
on
when
top
they-
of that,
if
just
we-
to be
if
clear,
we-
Terrence
Literally,
Mann,
no one on his team can keep anyone in front. He then
Nobody.
rotates to the rim, and then we call it rim deterrence, where I come from. They kick out to Terrence Mann, who has never been able to shoot or score like that a day in his life, and he has 40.
Florida State,
If
shout
his
out.
team could make secondary rotations, they don't run into those problems. But
No,
we're going to blame Rudy Gobert because he's the only big on the floor. The issue I have with Rudy Gobert in that game in particular, because the Clippers went small, which led to him
He
having
could
to
have
make those
capitalized
rotations.
on other.
If Rudy Gobert wasn't a complete liability offensively, when a team goes small, you know what you can do? Give the ball to the big man in the post or under the rim, and he can capitalize, and then Ty Lue has to adjust. Oh, look, we can't keep a bunch of 6'5" guys out here because the 7'1" guy is killing us. But he couldn't do it. That's the problem with Rudy Gobert. If he could force them to actually play a big, you wouldn't have the problem of teams running 5 out and your Utah team not being able to guard anyone in space. But he's
He could
so bad
all- he could-
offensively.
He
that
could do
hurt
it
his-
against my
hurt
team
defense.
though. Apparently,
Oh, yeah, 27 and 21 is that what he had?
20,
Whatever
whatever he
fried you
did.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah, but so I got Rudy, and then Anthony Davis. I think goes without saying. I think he's KG will notwithstanding. I think he's the most scheme versatile defender of this generation. There's anything you could run with him. If you want him to switch, I'm talking about younger, more flexible AD. You could switch with him. You could play drop. He can defend in the post. One of the best rim protectors in the sport. One of the best rebounders in the sport. Just the amount of flexibility he provides you while being, for a time, probably the second best rim protector in the league, only behind Rudy Gobert, but then having a level of versatility that's only really matched by like Draymond Green while being 6'10", 6'11". That flexibility and utility is something that I don't think can be matched, especially in the playoffs. My only issue with Anthony Davis for a while has been his transition defense, but in the half court, there's not many holes in his game. So that's why I got Anthony Davis.
But statistically, against Embiid and Jokic, two bigs that play in the post a lot, usually AD gets cooked.
I think that goes without
Okay.
saying.
No. I'm just saying. I mean, there's not a lot of bigs in the post these days, so I'm just saying.
Even if that's true, but I mean, notoriously, bigs going up against other bigs get destroyed, right? Especially elite bigs who could score. So I mean, up until 1995, David Robinson. I mean, Olajuwon had his hands full with David Robinson. Let's be clear about that. Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon had his hands full with these guys. He had his hands full with Shaq. So you're gonna when you go up against elite bigs in terms of guys who can score, you're gonna have your hands full with these guys. My thing that I'm thinking about with Dwight Howard as a big, and again, I think the term drop coverage had just started getting mentioned during that time. But I feel like during that time, the big man, even though he was dying, Dwight Howard, as a defensive presence, still could park in the lane. And not only could he park in the lane, he could completely shut your offense off. So anything that you were trying to do coming downhill, anything that you were trying to do getting to the lane, it was just not happening. You had to completely change your offense. And anything that you were doing in transition, Dwight Howard was able to thwart that. He was a great transition defensive player and great transition defensive rebounder too. So when you're talking about Rudy Gobert carrying his team, like you talked about, Mars, which I think he 100% did that in 21. I think the year that they 20, I want to say 21 or 22, one of them 2 years, where they were the number one defense in the league. I could say the same thing about Dwight Howard in 2011 when they were the fourth team, when they were in fourth place. They were the best defense in the league, and that was largely due to Dwight Howard. I think
The Bulls
he
were the
should.
best
I
defense
think
in 2011.
one more time.
The Bulls were the best defense.
The
in
Bulls,
2011.
but and I think they were. I think Orlando was fourth that year. Yeah, I think Orlando was
That was about right, yeah.
yeah. I think Orlando was fourth that year in terms of defense. With that being said, I think that was largely due to how good Dwight Howard was, not only as a rim protector and rebounder, but I just also think his paint presence was just immaculate. So when I think about guys during that time and the guys that you mentioned, I think that Dwight Howard has a legit argument for being the best defensive player of his era.
Oh, he has an argument for sure. I would
compare KG more to I'll compare AD more to KG in regards to like overall versatility and athletic ability and what they do on the court. However, I think they both, KG and AD both were their best defensive self when they had another big on the court. Them for KG when he had Park and when AD had JaVale McGee and Dwight, that's when they really shined as defenders because they had some additional help. So they can, and same thing on offense. When I got a bunch of buckets around me, of course I got a little more room to wiggle because if you help, I'm kicking it and there's a bucket. Defensively, the same thing. When I know my guys are strapping up, I have to only play one or two roles. I can float a little bit more and do a little bit more on the court. The reason I mentioned him, I know, as you said, Chill, bigs get cooked by each other. I mean, AD has a losing record against Embiid. He's 1-7. Embiid is I mean, that's a tough number. And then against Jokic,
It's
Jokic almost averaging a triple double against him. And he's
now to your point, to your
Okay.
point, and we've actually had this I was about to say we've had this conversation. We have to accept the fact, guys, and I'm challenging you guys to do this more often. Can we just accept that more times than not? When you see a guy get his ass bust, this dude is better than that dude, and it's okay. Joker is better than Anthony Davis, and we have to accept that.
So is Joel Embiid.
And what we do is we get wrapped up in all the other stuff. You can look at that dude, see what he does in terms of his production, and watch the game and go, yo, that dude is better than that dude. When I watch Joker and I watch Anthony Davis in that series, Joker is better than him. And there's nothing that Anthony Davis could do about it except trying to counter with scoring back, with scoring. Other than that, he's just better than him. And that's okay.